everyone, and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today I am privileged to be joined by Rabbi Nachum Lehman, Director of CSB CARE. Thank you, Rabbi Lehman, for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into our conversation, I just want to let our viewers know that you brought quite a bit of show and tell here, so they should know that it's not a mistake that we have this iPad and this $15,000 screen and some other interesting paraphernalia. And what makes this interview so unique as well is that most of the interviews we've done here at Inside ArtScroll have been with authors and writers and sometimes relatives of people related to the books that we published. And today we're going in a totally different direction. Your connection to ArtScroll is very unique in that you're bringing ArtScroll's works, Svarim and books, to unique populations, people who either can't see or people who can see, but that's their only means of communication. So tell us a little about what you do and how you got involved in it.
Okay, I think that's a great way to give it some context, that we have clients that are visually impaired and blind, so we bring ArtScroll materials to them by either printing them in Braille. Some of them get in an electronic Braille. We do large print for the visually impaired as well, and large print can sometimes mean just a little bit bigger than regular print. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it means 1 or 2 words per page, and so that's one part of what CSB does. And then a second part is not just changing the format of the material, but actually giving the clients a different access method, a different way to actually open the book or turn the page of the book. And that's for people who are physically disabled, who have possibly suffered a stroke, have cerebral palsy or ALS. And these people control their environments in completely different ways. And they also want to have access to the ArtScroll library, and that's what we provide for them.
Now, this involvement with ArtScroll goes back how many years? About
20, maybe a little more, a little less. I don't remember the exact dates.
So this is going back to Reb Meir Zlotowitz's days?
Yes.
Is he the one who initially kind of made that connection, that relationship?
Yes. And so I think it was probably in the year 2000 or so, is when we started doing embossed Braille, hard copy Braille, in order to give people a lot of access to the digital materials that were available online or in purchasable software. And we started receiving many requests for ArtScroll materials as well. And so we started the process of getting permission. That's not a quick process. Mm-hmm. It's something that takes a while, and we actually had, we enlisted the help of Rabbi Pesach Krohn helped us a lot with that, and Rabbi Avram Biederman was involved, but Rabbi Meir Zlotowitz, Zechroni Livracha, was personally involved the entire time, and it was just a matter of working it out in a very responsible and effective way. So I think it took, though, a couple of years to actually get the permissions to distribute ArtScroll's materials in the ways that we do it. But once we did receive permission, it was like opening a floodgate. It was, everything was available, and when we made requests for materials, they came in immediately. Mm-hmm.
What was the first thing that you decided to bring to the visually impaired public? What was the first volume?
I think the main thing that was, the first requests were really for leisure reading materials.
Even before Gemara and Sidurim and
Way
Tehillim?
before, because most people would have a siddur from us. They would have, and doing Hebrew-English stuff in Braille is very difficult. So it was the leisure reading material was definitely the most important piece missing in their lives, because they, if a 3-day Yom Tiv, people spend a lot of time reading, and if someone doesn't have something in Braille and that's all they read, then
that's very difficult.
Very difficult. So the leisure reading material was those were the first requests, and I think that's the first thing we did was ask for 10 biographies and some inspirational publications, and we got them out, almost immediately. And I think that one of the worst things that happened to me at that time was we had to spend a lot of time converting these things, even though we were getting them digitally, converting them into Braille and taking out some of the typesetting things that are in them in order to make them Braille compatible.
User friendly for
it was a job. And so we put in many hours to create this first set of books, some children's books, some adult books.
Do you remember any specific titles from that first bunch?
So from the first bunch, I know we did some of the Touched by a Stories initially.
Rabbi Spiro.
Rabbi Spiro. We did some of the Maggid books. We did a couple of biographies. I don't remember. I know we did Beloved by All. I have that here in a large print, but that wasn't from the first ones, that's for sure. But after we did this, and we had spent a lot of time in the office preparing these, I think like a week after we distributed them, our clients were calling back, okay, we finished them, where's more? So that was difficult.
It was difficult, but also a validation that you had hit on something, right?
100%.
It's something that had never been available. All these fantastic books that all of us take for granted, we could just go to any shelf, and literally thousands and thousands of books in Svarim. I think before anything, it's just important to take a moment and remind ourselves of how fortunate we are that we don't have to come onto your services. We go into any Svarim store, we order books online, they come, we open them up, we read them.
Right.
What a gift from the Rabbi Lehman that not everyone has, whether it's because they're visually impaired or where they have other limitations, like you mentioned, ALS patients, where they could only see they could only communicate with their sight, and you've created programs that enable them to read. So why don't you start? Give us one example of something you've done that we could show the audience.
Okay, so these are a couple of Braille volumes. So we just took some things off of the shelf. This is Who Cares? 94 Stories of People Who Did, and by Baruch Brol. And this is, so right away in Braille things are a lot bigger. I don't recall how many volumes it actually is in Braille, but this is volume 3. So however big the book is, it's going to be probably 6 or 7 times the number of volumes in Braille.
One book is actually released in several volumes.
Right. So this is just like volume 3, even though it's all part of the same book. And it's just basically, it's a book in Braille, and where they have an index in the front, and then they have the page numbers in Braille, and they can just read through it, and they use this on a Shabbos afternoon, just like we use any.
And I will say, when you came before we started our interview, I was looking through some of your paraphernalia, and I closed my eyes and I was running my hand over the Braille, and I commented to our engineer here that I could barely discern the difference between, the number of dots and things like that. I know I'm sounding so ignorant, but it really seemed to be such a yeoman's task to master Braille. Just talk about that. Obviously you're familiar with that, with the difficulty of learning the language.
Right, and it is. It's the task of learning the code is not such a difficult task where someone has to just learn what each Braille character reference stands for in either English or Hebrew. Hebrew Braille actually is read also from left to right. That's an interesting
detail.
But the part that takes a while to become proficient in is the tactile accuracy, and that's which
means in layman's terms,
being able to differentiate between the different characters using someone's finger to figure out, is that 3 dots in a row, is that 2 dots and 1 on the other column. So developing that skill usually takes someone about a year until they're reading at a pace that's considered a reading pace.
Do you know how to read Braille, by the way?
Only by looking at it a little bit, not by, I can't, only Hebrew Braille. Hebrew Braille a little bit, yeah.
I wanted to test you. Could you read this sentence?
I can't, no. I could, also, there's, aside from the Braille itself, there are contractions. So that means that a person has to learn many hundreds of contractions where in Braille, let's say if you have just TH, that will represent an entire word.
Oh, it's almost like Rosh Hashanah.
Right. And that's to make it that it should be smaller and quicker to read. So those I certainly don't know. So yeah, so I failed that one.
So this is here. This is a Braille book. Who cares? What else do we have here?
So now there's a few things. First of all, we have some special volumes, like we've done Touched by a Story for children. We have many volumes like this where the Braille volume actually has the pictures from the book in the volume. And this was because a few of our clients were blind mothers that wanted to read to their children.
Wow.
So they would be reading the book from the Braille, and the
child
child
could
would be
follow along with the picture.
following the picture.
Wow.
And just a really interesting addition to this book is that we had one ALS patient who wanted to do some volunteer work for CSB. So, and we actually had a wonderful project for her, and this is going back several years. The project was that she went and created captions for these pictures so that although it wouldn't be there in the ArtScroll book, but it would be in a page on the other side corresponding to the picture that would say, there's an elderly man speaking to 5 boys, two are wearing red hats, and it would be an entire
describe the
caption
picture.
so that the blind mother would actually have the details to describe to her
Picture.
child.
Wow. Okay.
And then we have all sorts of special projects that we're constantly doing. This one is something that we just started a couple of years ago, and actually Rabbi Gedalio was more involved in this project, where this is a Braille Hebrew-English Tehillim. Hebrew-English is a big challenge when it comes to Braille because having it on 2 sides of the page is difficult.
Is this Hebrew and English on separate pages?
What we did was we took every pasuk of Tehillim, and we have the Hebrew, and then we have the English indented a little bit.
Almost like an interlinear style?
So it's really linear, not interlinear, because the interlinear, I think we would give up. But here it's linear, but it's just the entire pasuk and then an indented version in English, so that whoever wants can do the Hebrew, and if they skip the indented piece,
they
can
just
just
go
go
on to the
next
line.
Hebrew. Or if they want, they can read the English, which is giving them the same option as they would have with a printed volume.
Very nice.
And this is a new thing and very exciting for us because Hebrew English is important for this.
Listen, I think every single volume you're going to put out, whatever it is going to be significant, because you're opening up a new world to people who didn't have it, right?
Right.
Now let's turn to this screen for a moment. This screen, I think when you set it up, you said it's like a $14,000-$15,000 monitor. What does this do, and who does it cater to?
So this is for someone who can see, but they can't move, and generally for someone who can't speak either. It's usually for ALS patients or someone with a physical disability. You
mentioned cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy also, and there are children and adults that use these devices for everything, and it really gives people independence. It gives them the ability to communicate. It gives them the ability to control their environment. They can control the thermostats in the house, anything that's infrared controlled, anything. They can email, they can text, they can even make a phone call.
It's not just about learning and reading.
It's primarily really about communication.
About communication, and that's something that CSB does as well. It's providing people reach out to you on behalf of these patients.
Right.
And do you actually go set it up individually for every patient, because kind of to custom tailor it to their needs?
Yes. I mean, most of the time we don't have to do it in home. We can do it remotely. But it's a constant job keeping people's devices updated and communicative. And but one of the benefits of these devices that they have full control of is that we were able to use some of the ArtScroll materials to give people the ability to daven, give them the ability to read a book. And this has really opened up amazing things for adults and children. And really, some of the kids that are using these devices, you can imagine they don't have a lot of material. They don't have a lot of control of their world. And when you give them a children's art scroll book, which is so exciting, and that they can control it, it's really changing their world.
Wow. Now, could you demonstrate for us how this works?
Yeah, it's really simple. Just wherever.
I think our viewers will be able to follow along.
Okay. So just by looking at the screen, wherever I look, you'll see this little indicator showing that like it's dwelling on the button. So if I would go to where it says main index over there, and I just stay on it for a little bit, it will.
So I see it says Mincha Erev Rosh Hashanah Ma'ariv Shachris Musaf.
Right.
Mincha Tashach. I guess this is a Rosh Hashanah.
This is a Rosh Hashanah Machzor.
And
so if I want to go, and I'm controlling it with my
eyes.
eyes. Okay. So if I want to go, let's say to Shachris, I look at it. I just look at it.
You just look at it. You're dwelling on it.
And if I want to go to Tekiah Shofar, I look at it. I look at Tekiah Shofar, and then it clicks it, and then it will bring up Tekiah Shofar. And here is.
And how do you scroll on the page now?
So we don't scroll. We only do next page. Because we have to split up the page into two halves.
The page into two halves.
Right.
Okay.
So, and I go. If I look at the next button here, that goes to the next page, and then I can see the bottom of the page. Wow. And if I go next again.
So you could go next, and you could go back, and then
and
you're controlling this all with your eyes.
All with my eyes. And if I go back to the index, it says, do I want to return? I say yes, and I'm back at the index. So this is how someone would daven. And yes, people use this on Rosh Hashanah.
On Rosh Hashanah, I was going to ask.
Yes, and on many people use it on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shabbos. We're not going to get into that here, but it's pretty much niskabel like that. And then so this is just, let's say this is a machzor. If I go home, I can then go into other things. Like here is something that we did for Shavuos, where someone gets the Megillas Rus, the art scroll Megillas Rus with the pictures, and this is for a child who is 9 years old who is using eye tracking. And again, the same thing. It just has the access to the Rus, Megillas Rus art scroll.
It's unbelievable.
Publication.
That is really unbelievable.
And what's so important to remember is that you need to use your imagination how you can use this to make it more effective. We've been doing this for many years, and we didn't think of this one
right away.
Initially, right?
Right away,
it's like it's really it's about the clients and sometimes caregivers realizing that there's something great that you can do, and this makes somebody's Shavuos, or makes while all the other kids in their class are learning about Rus and Shavuos,
they could learn too.
They can do it too.
Wow. That's really phenomenal. Now, communicating is a similar system where they...
Yeah, I can show you how that works. Over here, I'll go to the index, and the way they do that, you need really good accuracy, and maybe my position isn't great for it, but I'll try it. I'm going to speak. I'll try to type your name.
And it's just one letter at a time?
There is predictions, but Hissiger is not a prediction, I'm telling you. I'm having trouble getting the G. I got it. Okay. And then...
you mean predictions where it will help the patient finish the word? Like autocorrect type of thing?
Right. And then it builds up over time according to what they type. I got to get that R.
The R is a little harder.
There we go. And then I can speak it.
Hissiger.
Wow.
So this is how people communicate, and they can prepare beforehand if they need to speak by a simcha. They prepare things before, and they have phrases, and there's all sorts of shortcuts to make this more effective,
user-friendly,
and quicker. But it's an amazing device.
That really is. You're restoring, you're giving life back to people who really lost all connection. Just think back not so long ago when, before this technology existed, Nebuch, if someone was stricken with ALS, they had no way of communicating.
Right.
So it's really transformative.
Right.
We know Reb Mendy Rosenberg is from the more well-known when despite his ALS, displayed tremendous courage he made a Siyam Hashas and inspired so many people to do that. But that was really credit to you and the innovations that you made available, right?
Right, and I have to, I guess, say again that the credit goes to Mendy Rosenberg because it's really our clients who have this inner strength that helps them get through something so challenging. We're, Baruch Hashem, able to sometimes provide tools that they need to make something happen, but it's them. It's really someone learning Braille and someone using an eye tracking device, and even now we're getting more involved in brain communication, and there are things that are happening on that front. It just takes unbelievable perseverance, and they have it.
Now you're focused a lot on Judaic related products, right? Judaism. I'm curious, how do your innovations compare to what's going on in the wide world out there? There are Braille societies and things of that sort. Do you work in tandem with them? Have they ever reached out to you? Kind of maybe you're even ahead of where they are. Talk about that.
Right. So we do a lot together with some of the other organizations. It's I guess when it comes to the Judaic materials, it's just you have to be really careful. You can't have publishers' texts going all over the place.
Right.
So it just makes it a little bit more
proprietary information.
Right. And so people, I guess, out there in the greater world, so people have more online access to things, and there's just a ton of content available online that is just not available to our audience. So,
is there a way for an ALS patient to navigate the internet and things of that sort? Yeah.
Completely. And I could show you, but and that's how someone like Mendy Rosenberg, who was actually learning and listening to shiurim a whole day, he was doing that through online access. And you can completely surf the web and get to Torah anytime. You can get to EDAF, any of the available resources you can get to, and you can control them. And those part of what we do sometimes is that access needs higher accuracy, and sometimes the ALS patient's accuracy is not great due to medications or whatever it may be. That's part of our job, trying to make that connection so that they can use it. So sometimes we have to program buttons to do things automatically, but we actually have, for one particular patient, we've created like a whole Daf Yomi system in his eye tracker where he has Rabbi Elephant's shiurim, and they're downloaded and they're in the eye tracker. It's like a full-time job, but he's using that, and he learns the Daf every day, and it's like that's our payback.
So that's almost like a custom-made system for that particular patient.
And most of the things we do are customized, but some of them take a little more work. And but that one is extremely successful, and he's using it, and now a second ALS patient is starting to use it also.
Now we jumped right into your incredible work and what you do, but I failed to ask you how someone like you live in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. How does someone get involved in this that it really became your life's mission?
So it's a long story, but I guess the short version is that I was actually in Kollel, and I was doing a little bit of software development on the side, and then someone that I knew lost his vision, and this was in about 1996 or 97, and since he knew that I was doing some computer things, he asked if there was a way for him to be able to continue learning without being able to read. So I did some research, and I came up empty-handed. So I wrote a quick piece of software, which was an audio-based program that allowed people to record Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, and all sorts of commentaries, and then it was indexed in a way that someone who couldn't see would hear a little piece of the Gemara, and then they had a little keypad with 20 buttons on it. They could either go to the next piece of Gemara, they could go to the Rashi, the Tosfos. It was giving, the tech term is random access to anything they wanted to learn. Meaning, when you're learning a Gemara, you could decide to go to the next Gemara, or you could decide to go look at the Marsha. You want independent access to everything there. And that's what this audio program did. And so that's how we started.
I mean, is that similar to now Kol HaLashon and these other programs? Totally
Not
different.
at all. Because here, by Kol HaLashon, when you listen to a shiur, you're going to listen to the shiur the way the person
Delivered it.
sequentially said it, right? Here, the recordings were made, but you could listen to them like the Gemara now, and even though the Gemara was read in straight, 10 dafim of Gemara, you could, after you hear a little piece, you can now listen to the Marsha on that Gemara.
Oh, wow.
Or you could decide to go back and read the same Gemara 5 times. So it was giving somebody the experience of learning from a Gemara, but in an audio version. And within a year of making that software, 20 people were using it, including Rabbi Moshe Kalevsky in Baltimore.
The Rosh Yeshiva.
The Rosh Yeshiva, because he was severely visually impaired.
Right.
And it took some time. It was a difficult process because it was Baltimore, and it was before it wasn't so easy transferring data over between Bensonhurst and Baltimore.
I know in his biography it talks about that at the Seif Yamav, at the end of his life, how he was using these giant-sized Gemaras. Were you involved in
I wasn't involved in the
okay.
giant size. At that time, we weren't doing the giant size Gemaras, but we were just involved in this part, which was giving him access. I remember the story. I went to meet him in Flatbush, and I asked him, so what Sfarim does the Rosh Yeshiva need? Now, he had no clue how much work it takes to do this, right? So he said, okay, so I need the Gemara, Rashi, Taisvis, the Rashba, the Ramban, Ran, Rabbi Akiva Eiger, Pnei Yeshua, and the list, and like until I think I just like exploded. I said, okay. And then and we actually had someone in Bensonhurst do the recording, and this is, someone had to do the recording of Rabbi Akiva Eiger and Pnei Yeshua when they weren't learning the sugya. So like that was, and then we gave it to him, but so we gave him those materials. But
that was in print or in audio?
No, this was on all computer based. It was the audio one, and it was using a computer with this little keypad where he could listen to the Gemara and he could go straight to the Rabbi Akiva Eiger.
Wow.
And he could, or whatever he wanted. But he was nifter very soon after
you started doing this,
right? When we did a few deliveries of data with him, and he was nifter then, and then but so within that first year, we had already acquired 20 clients, and I think at that time we went to Rabbi Aaron Schechter with someone, and to ask if we should make this into an organization, and he said certainly, and I think Rabbi Gedalia Weinberger was like one of the founding fathers of CSB, and helped us get it off the ground, and over the years. It's evolved into many different technologies for so many different people.
Sure.
I think it's worth mentioning because I'm actually going to show something on the ArtScroll Digital Library that Stanley and Ellen Wasserman, who were the ones who sponsored the ArtScroll Digital Library, have for years been sponsoring what we've been doing for the blind and visually impaired, and so many of the projects. So they've been on both sides of that.
Wow, that is special. I was going to ask you about the funding component. Is this all sponsored? Is there any government funding for this type of thing?
Not really, because it's very specific, and so it's difficult. And some of the other things, some of the ALS stuff, there is potential for some government funding, but so far we haven't gone.
And how big of a staff do you have working on these
So we have 6 people. We have 5 people in the office, and then we have a programmer outside of the office and a director of development outside of the office. And it's we have a really great staff of people who they really get these projects done. A little bit, we have so many dream projects on our lists, but we'll get to them.
I mean, a project like the ArtScroll, the Schanstein Gemara, is that something that's available?
So only partially, because again, the Hebrew, for the Braille, for the Hebrew English, we do it once in a while for someone who needs something like that. It's a tremendous amount of work, because even when we get the texts from ArtScroll, which they generously provide, It's a lot of work on our side to convert the Hebrew English, and it's really a process. So we don't do that often.
And for let's say for the ALS patient to take
pictures? We do that more often. We do that where we have some clients that have a Masechta or two of ArtScroll's Schottenstein edition on their ALS, on their eye tracking device, and they use it that way. There are challenges with that as well, though, just to be clear, because the way the screen is laid out, we have to split every page in two in order that someone should be able to just read it.
Right.
So when you split something in two, so now we're going to have the Gemara split in two, and then the English side is going to be split in two. So if they're on the top of the Amud and they want to see the translation, they really have to go 2 pages further to go see that translation, and then 2 pages back. Mm-hmm. So these sorts of things just make it difficult.
More complicated.
But we do it. We do it, and that's part of the.
Wow. Now, what did you want to show us on the ArtScroll Digital Library? Something on the iPad?
Oh yeah. So this is actually there are so many things I'd love to show you, but we don't have enough time for everything. So, but the ArtScroll Digital Library is something that's available on an iPad, and I think that a lot of people that are physically disabled don't really know that there are ways to control the iPad completely by voice. Now, it's not Siri. Siri is very limited, right? Mm-hmm. But Apple has a comprehensive voice control built into the iPad, which people with severe physical limitations, they can completely use an iPad. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that you have on the ArtScroll team Ellie Drabkin, sure, who's in Baltimore, who actually is very proficient in many of the alternative access methods for iPads and computers for accessing the ArtScroll Digital Library. And I wish more people knew about that. ArtScroll has so many things going on for the visually impaired, the physically disabled. I just think it needs to
be brought out more.
To be brought out and advertised. Yeah. But because some of the things that we do, we've run into Ellie Dratkin over time, and he's been doing some amazing things. Just not regarding voice control, but I just wanted to show this really quickly so that if someone sees this and they would like to control their iPad and like to have access to the ArtScroll Digital Library, this is an amazing tool. And hopefully it's going to listen to me, okay? I'm going to try it here.
Hey, give it a shot.
Hey Siri, turn on voice control.
Voice control is already turned on.
Open ArtScroll. So now, the way this voice control works is that I can tell it some commands, and it will give me access to every element on the screen of the iPad. So I'll show you one of them is show numbers. Now every book has a number next to it, and every link on the entire iPad screen has
numbered.
Is numbered.
So you don't have to say the name of the item, you just say the number.
So I can say now, just have to stop before 13, and it opens up the ArtScroll Tehillim. Now, there are ways, now you'll see there's like a next button. The ArtScroll Digital Library has a next button on the bottom.
Right.
That one could be difficult sometimes. You could do the show numbers command, and that will show us a number there, but then you'd have to do that every time. Mm-hmm. It happens to be that all of the links on an iPad also get names. ArtScroll's naming convention isn't so great, but that's because they didn't realize that they could do this way. But I think that the next button, I think is called the left arrow, so I'm going to try that. Tap next arrow, tap left arrow, and then it goes to the next page. Oh, wow. Now, let's say there are sometimes links that have no number and have no name, but they're still the coolest way in the world to control it. Let's say I wanted to go to the menu, which is all the way on the bottom left over there. Show grid. 17.
So you gridded the page, and then you picked the box that
And
had that.
and I'm making it smaller and smaller, 7. And once I'm happy with the size, I can just do tap 7. And it brings up the menu.
Wow.
So this is a way that, aside from the ArtScroll Digital Library, this is someone, if someone is physically disabled and they have their voice, they can use this completely to control their iPad. And from an iPad, you can control everything.
Wow.
They can go on to Shiurim, they can control their environment, they can put on music, they can anything.
Yeah, it opens up a whole wide world to them.
But what amazes me is that ArtScroll has done such a great job of getting the content and the material out there. And now, Baruch Hashem, after these 20 years, we've had the permissions to be able to go and disseminate them in this way.
Right.
It's just amazing how this is opening up so many doors.
Well,
so many
you
people.
mentioned Reb Meir Zlotowitz earlier. We spoke so many times on this program about Reb Meir's vision. He was a visionary. He saw things before other people did. He envisioned projects before people thought they were possible. And I'm guessing that from your collaboration, which goes back almost 30 years, I guess he saw what you saw. No pun intended, but he really saw that that vision that you had, he had as well, and that's what kind of enabled him to be free about giving you the material that you need to be able to reach all these people and being mezaka so many people and enriching their lives and bringing flavor and sound and vision back into their day.
Absolutely. He was very into making this happen, and I think it was took time just for it to happen in a responsible way.
Right.
And I think that on the side, we owe him another big piece of gratitude for because whenever we have to get permission from another publisher, it's the first thing we say is that ArtScroll gives us their texts, and it's usually from there. It's easy.
Right.
So we have relationships with so many publishers now, and but I think that people, they really respect the fact that ArtScroll has done this, that we're able to get it from anyone.
Now, what's the next frontier in what you do? What's the next big project?
There are so many projects going on, but it depends in which thing. I think that one of the biggest things going on by us at the moment is brain communication, because it's called BCI, it's brain computer interface, which is being able to allow people to communicate just by thinking. And this is an amazing thing, which is, there are programs that have been out even for 30 years, which I've used, but you have to put like an EEG head cap on, and it takes a half an hour to put on. But a person, just by looking at a screen and thinking, they can actually type. And I've done it, so I know that it works.
Wow.
And today they're trying to come out with headsets that allow people to do that. That we're not there yet. Everyone knows about Elon Musk's initiatives, which are real and working, but that's neurosurgery. We're actually right now focusing on a particular technology where they put in a stent, they put a stent into someone's motor cortex, and through that stent, which is it's very minimally invasive procedure.
I was going to ask how invasive it is.
It's a stent. It's a stent in the brain, but it's a stent only. And we have a few ALS clients that actually have had that done already. And through that, it's going to open up a lot of brain communication options. And so that's going to, and then,
hopefully bring more people, enable more people to use your services.
Right.
Wow.
And that's important. That's really important.
It's amazing to hear and to see all that you've accomplished. I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank Hananya Kramer and his crew at Kol Rum for they enabled us to do this interview with these different, the show and tell, and they showed it on the screen, and so our viewers could get a taste of what you're doing. So we're appreciative to them. And we're appreciative to you for, it's really inspiring just to listen to what you do and the passion you have for this work. Any final message before we wrap up?
No, I think this is my big opportunity to say the big thank you to ArtScroll for making their publications available to so many of the people we work with. It was game changing for us when that permission came through, and it's game changing for us every single day.
Well, Amir Tashem, you'll continue to change so many lives, and just really, it's a tremendous opportunity, a tremendous zikra rabbim that you're doing. So we wish you continued atzlacha, and thank you for coming out to join us today.
I mean, thank you.